Was Osama bin Laden right? Was his complaints against the United States actually valid? And are we in the wrong? That's a real serious question that's going around, especially on TikTok and several other social media platforms, especially among the younger generation right now. There's a lot of people that are facing what some self-describe as an existential crisis of belief. Because at the heart of this, there's a letter that was written by Osama bin Laden not too long after 9/11. I think it was 2002, where he wrote what's called a letter to America, where he laid out his vision of things and explained why that they were doing many of the things that they were doing. That's been relegated to almost ancient history by most today. It was ridiculed and laughed at when it first came out. Hardly anyone actually read the whole thing, and certainly they didn't believe any of it. But today, this new generation who had not heard about it suddenly picked up on it in light of the fight going on between Israel and the Hamas in Gaza Strip. The reason for that is because Osama bin Laden mentioned some things about Palestine, and that was published in a British newspaper. Someone read it, and then it went like wildfire around on the social media. Now, there's a couple things we need to bear in mind when we take a look at this letter. But first of all, let's take a look real quick at just what some of the people are saying about it.
This morning I read Letter to America, which is Osama bin Laden's letter to America explaining why he attacked Americans. It's wild. This has left me very disillusioned.
My entire viewpoint on the entire life I have believed and I have lived has changed.
Go read A Letter to America. I feel like I'm going through like an existential crisis right now.
Reading this letter, it becomes apparent to me that the actions of 9/11 and those acts committed against the USA and its people were all just the buildup of our government failing other nations.
My voice just wants to leave you.
The way this letter is going viral right now is giving me the greatest sense of relief. Now it's all coming to light because of Palestine.
Hey. Are you even paying attention to me right now?
You know, I think that they have a point. It is important to talk about this. We shouldn't just say, "Oh, that's Osama bin Laden." It's all lies. So just don't read it. Don't listen to any of it, because like so many things that are effective, especially good propaganda, it does contain some truth with some half truths, and then mixed in with some outright fabrications and lies. And that, I think, is what you see a lot in this letter from Osama bin Laden. All those things are mixed in there. Now, I want to go through three things just categorically out of this letter, which I think really can illustrate what is riddled throughout this. And if you see these three things, then you'll be able to look at it through a slightly different lens. But let me just say from the outset, this is not a section here or a video where we're just going to say, yeah, disregard everything in that letter and it's all lies, because it's not. There are some partial truths in there, and it's also definitely not to absolve the United States and the West of many things we have in fact done wrong over the years. If anybody's been following my career for the last 2 decades, I have not been shy about pointing out things that our governments have been doing that are catastrophically bad, that have resulted in all kinds of people being killed overseas, pointlessly and needlessly, getting our own people killed pointlessly and needlessly. So there's a lot to really shine a light on some of the things that we have been doing, things that we need to do better for our own sakes. So let's make sure that that's clear on the table right up front. Continue watching Daniel Davis Deep Dive, because we talk about those things a lot. So just share that with your friends if you do want to know the truth, because we're dedicated to the truth on this. And we tackle tough issues just like this. We're unafraid and unintimidated. I don't care if anybody likes it or doesn't like it. We're going to tell you the truth. So you're armed with the right information, then you come to whatever conclusions you want to. This is what's going to happen here. Now, first of all, I want to show you 3 separate things from this letter here, and then we're going to talk about what bin Laden didn't tell you. So first one here is bin Laden wrote, quote, "The creation of Israel is a crime which must be erased. Each and every person whose information have become polluted in the contribution towards this crime must pay its price and pay it heavily. When the Muslims conquered Palestine and drove out the Romans, Palestine and Jerusalem returned to Islam, the religion of all the prophets, peace be upon them. Therefore, The call is a historic right to Palestine and cannot be raised against the Islamic Ummah. Okay, he leaves out a lot of history there, and a lot of things that are kind of important that he intentionally leaves out, or unintentionally, I don't know, but kind of important to the discussion here. Now, at heart is many people who argue for the Jewish state say this is the historic right of the Jewish people, going all the way back to Abraham when God promised the land to the Jewish people, and so that's what they base a lot of their claims on. Well, the Islamic side also goes back to Abraham, and they also lay claim to a lot of this land. But what Bin Laden doesn't tell you is that the Muslim ownership of this particular piece of land in this area here only came because of conquest. So first of all, in the siege of Jerusalem in the year 636 to 638, the Muslim caliphate from Rashidun Caliphate against the Byzantine Empire captured Jerusalem and the Middle East, and it became a Muslim area. So it was a Christian nation area before that, but then it was lost to the Byzantines and it became Muslim. That stood until 1095, when Christian armies under the expedition of the Council of Clermont under Pope Urban militarily attacked and destroyed the Islamic armies there, and they now reconquered Jerusalem in 1099, and again it became a Christian area. And then about a century later, the Muslims reconquered it under the infamous Saladin, the Sultan of Egypt and Syria, defeated a massive army of Christian crusaders at the Battle of Hattin and captured the city of Jerusalem in 1187. And up until 1948, when Israel was created by the United Nations, they were continued to be in the land. Now, it's important to point out that there was no country, there was no ownership of any sort of territories other than people were living there. So there's a lot to argue there that when Israel was created, they displaced hundreds of thousands of Palestinians off the land, and it was taken over by the Jews. There's many other things we want to talk about in subsequent issues here directly about the historical and the angst that is suffered by both the Palestinian people and the Jewish people in this area. We're going to save that one for another day. But right now, let's go to the next thing that Osama bin Laden wrote that has a lot of people upset. Bin Laden wrote, "Under your supervision, consent, and orders, the governments of our countries which act as your agents attack us on a daily basis. The governments prevent our people from establishing the Islamic Sharia, using violence and lies to do so." So he's saying, yeah, because of the United States and the countries that you like, they have caused us to be cut off, and we want to have Sharia law, but we won't allow it. Well, that's an odd thing to do, and I'm not sure what the people who live in Afghanistan, Egypt, Iran, Iraq, certain parts of Indonesia, the Maldives, Malaysia, Mauritania, Nigeria, Pakistan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Sudan, United Arab Emirates, and Yemen. Not sure what they're going to say about that, because they all have some version of the Sharia law. What bin Laden is complaining about is that they don't have the type of Sharia law he likes and that he prefers. So he's almost as against those Islamic countries as he is the United States, because they're not the true patriots of the Islamic law, of the Sharia law. So make sure you look at that with a grain of salt. When he says you're preventing us from doing what we want, we're not. We don't have anything to do with what Saudi Arabia believes, Egypt, Qatar, some of these other countries. We have nothing to do with any of those places. They run the rules that they want. Nobody stops them. Anybody who wants to follow Sharia law is free to go there right now in any of those countries, and they can practice it. They can practice, their version of Islam nearly, all over the globe. There's 2 billion Muslims around, and so that part is just patently wrong. That's a complete lie and a fake. So let's move on to the next one here, because it gets into a little bit more of the issue at hand and what has been faced both since 9/11 and going on right now in Israel. Bin Laden wrote, "You attacked us in Somalia. You supported the Russian atrocities against us in Chechnya." That's pretty rich that actually he's accusing the United States of supporting Russia, but I digress. The Indian oppression against us in Kashmir and the Jewish aggression against us in Lebanon. The removal of these governments is an obligation upon us and a necessary step to free the Ummah, to make the Sharia the supreme law in the region of Palestine, and to fight against those governments is not separate from our fight against you. So bin Laden's beef isn't really with violence. It isn't even really with who's in charge. It's just that he wanted to decide who's in charge. So he says he wants to get rid of all of those governments. So if you're even thinking that, hey, bin Laden was right, we should have listened to him alone, he's not just advocating violence. He's saying, I want to kill everybody that I don't agree with, and I want to destroy all governments who don't do as I say. And that's kind of important to understand here. And then, of course, the rest of this letter is riddled with all kinds of comments just like that. So we need to be very, very careful that we don't listen so much to what bin Laden says and take it all at face value and saying, yeah, because he was right on these areas here, ergo, all of his argument was right, and we shouldn't have done a lot of these things. Let me lastly reiterate that there are many things that we shouldn't have done. There are many things that we're doing now we need to stop doing. And we're going to continue to call that out here at Deep Dive. But we just wanted to put this quick episode out as this issue is now trending on social media, that people understand a comprehensive balance about what they're seeing, and that they don't go too far into believing something that now then our side is completely wrong and that he was right all along, because bin Laden was never right all along. He had a few areas where he did have some legitimate points, and there are some things we could have done different. We could have actually taken heed to some of these things at the time, and a lot of this might have been avoided. 9/11 could have possibly been avoided, but that's neither here nor there. We can't go back in history. What we can do is take care of the issues at hand today, and we're going to keep talking about those things to the truth, because that's what we do here at Daniel Davis Deep Dive. But remember to like and subscribe and share this to your friends so that they also have the truth, and we'll see you on the next episode of Deep Dive.